So thanks, Coach Jordan, my former coach of the Washington Wizards. Thanks for coming on. Haven't talked to you in a while, so it's good to see you. How you been?
I know, man. I mean, I know we've texted a couple of times in the last year or so, but we haven't seen each other. I see you a lot, all different places and doing different things. So I'm happy for you, and I'm proud of you, man.
I appreciate it, Coach. I appreciate it. You know, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I was doing while I was with the Wizards. And you were somebody that was always supportive of it. You know, you knew I had a lot of other interests. I was, speaking different places, talking about politics, doing different things. So you was always supportive of that. So definitely appreciate that.
The thing is, Etan, it never took away from your basketball. It never took away from your profession.
Right.
You worked as hard. You was dedicated. You was passionate as anybody else in that locker room. Right. And yet, you had the energy and the mindset to do other things. Socially and politically, and we all enjoyed your activities and your passion in that regard also.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. So what have you been doing now? We, a lot of people. You get a lot of love here in DC. Like, I don't know if you know that though, but all the time, because I still live here. I'm Prince George's County. I still live in the same place I lived before. But you get. I don't know you're from here. You're from Southeast.
Yeah.
People really. They really respect you. They really show you love. Do you know that?
Well, I don't. My family's still there. My family was in Camp Springs. And they just bought a house out in Brandywine.
Okay.
So, yeah, man. I mean, look, I got a lot of friends there.
Okay.
A lot of high school buddies there. But no, that's my home. I put a lot of energy and a lot of passion into my job when I was there. Mm-hmm. I'm in Charlotte now. I've been here. I worked for the Hornets. I was assistant coach for the Hornets for Steve Clifford 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then when Michael Jordan decided to make a change, my girlfriend and I decided to stay here in Charlotte. We had a house in New Jersey. We sold that because we love it here. It's a fast-growing, really, really beautiful city. Mm-hmm. And so now I've been training basketball players at different levels, high school. I got a high school All-American.
Okay.
College guys, some adult guys that play in the Lifetime Fitness League. So I'm the hoops trainer at Lifetime Fitness.
Oh, okay.
But since they've closed, I've been doing that for about 5 months, and then they closed because of the COVID. Mm-hmm. And I believe we're going to start up again in a week or two.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I've had clients that I had with Lifetime who wanted to hire me individually. Okay. So I've been going around and training all types of levels of basketball players, and it's fun.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I coach my son's AAU team. You remember Malcolm?
How old is your son?
Malcolm just turned 15.
Okay.
Yeah, so you remember he was a little cat back when I was playing. Yeah, so now I coach his I have the shirt on, the FBCG Dynamic Disciples. Cool. So I've been coaching the young guys, and it's been a blast. I love it. It's different. Good. They play differently though. They play different than what we play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Malcolm, he's tall. You know my wife Nicole, so she's tall. So Malcolm is tall for his age, but he's all perimeter. He likes Giannis, and he wants to Euro step all over the place, and James Harden step back and do all. They ain't no dribbling on the post and 2 dribbles up the lane and then drop step like you used to teach me. Ain't none of that. He wants to go. Shoot. And so it's just a different game right now.
It's something that we all have to accept and get used to. How the game is evolving. When I was a player back in the 70s and 80s, it was 10 players inside the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Where it is now. It was 10 players. We all played inside the 10 of the 3-point line. Yeah. And now it's all 10 players outside the 3-point line. Yeah, that's how you start your possession. So, and you know what? I like the way they're playing. I know, but you have to. I don't like a lot of dribbling. I like ball movement, and I like cutting. I like passing and movement. I don't like the stand still, dribbling one guy, dribble. I don't like that.
Right.
But I like the fact that when they are moving and cutting and they're sharing the ball. It's a beautiful game because it's got space, and you just have more room to do things. And it's a fast-paced game when the ball is moving. I don't like the one-on-one dribble to me.
Well, you like the Princeton offense. So what you was like, what you wanted to really instill, and it was working. And it was funny because when we were having success with it, and then you had New Jersey, back when they were the Nets, they were having success with it. The whole league was trying to copy it.
That's right, Etan.
Triple handoff from the top with the big man going to all teams, and then everybody started playing small ball after Golden State started winning. So all it's going to take is a team with a big man to win, and then you're going to see big men come back in style.
It's going to trend. The trend is going to trend back, right?
Right.
But you know, you're right, because we called it the 1-2-2. It was it was at the end of most of our movement. When we did whatever it was, we called it basic, low post, you know, forwards out, whatever it was. The end of that was like maybe 10 seconds ago. We always ended up in the 1-2-2. You at the top of the key, and then you make a dribble handoff or you dribble reaction. We called it, and that's what everyone's doing now. So, and you know what, Etan, we had 4 out. Antoine was a 4-man who shot threes.
That's right.
So we did that back in, you know, the 2006, 7, 8, 9.
That's right.
And now that's what they're doing now.
Oh, that started with
fun.
you. I know that. I know that. But it's fun to watch. And it's interesting because talking about the time with the Wizards, you know, I don't feel still that you get the credit that you deserve for what you accomplished with the Wizards. And this is why I say this, though, because remember, I was there 2 years before you got there. I was there with MJ for 2 years. And I knew the history that the Wizards hadn't made the playoffs since Chris Webber and them, when they were the Bullets.
You know, 20 years.
Right. So, and MJ and them didn't make the playoffs. Doug Collins, he didn't lead them to the playoffs. But when we went to the playoffs, when you took over after MJ left and Doug Collins left as well, that first year was like the rebuilding year. And then after that, we made it every single year. Like it was expecting for us to make it. And I just don't think people, you know, like highlight that enough with you, because the Wizards weren't making no playoffs all before that.
Etan, you know what? The interesting thing is, us and Detroit Pistons, who won a championship during that run, we were the only 2 Eastern Conference teams to make 4 consecutive playoff appearances. Only 2 teams in the East, and that was Detroit and the Wizards. People don't know that either. But and even my first year with you, Gilbert got hurt, and we were going. You're right. We were going through a transition, and we had Stackhouse and we had Kwame. And then, you know, the next year, I think we had Gilbert too, but Gilbert got hurt in Seattle. He hurt his groin. Right. So we were kind of in transition. We were injured. Larry Hughes, I think, broke his finger. So he was out. So, but it was great. It was great to work with you. It was fun. I tell my girlfriend stories all the time.
We definitely have a lot of stories. You know,
a lot of stories.
We have a whole lot. But you know, but going back to the credit thing, and I know you're always very humble, and you don't, you know, like worry about that as much. But there is a difference, and I want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, did you see a difference? And I'll let you, I have in my mind what I think is the difference sometimes and the different barometer. But what in your mind, what was the different barometer with you? Because there are other coaches who accomplished way less than you and seem to just, you know,
get hired and
over and over again. And they, you know, what was the difference?
I think, and, you know, I don't talk about this much, but look, I had people who helped me along the way. We all have people who helped us,
of course.
But I never had a godfather in a sense. You know, I wasn't a USA basketball guy. I wasn't a guy from Duke. I wasn't a guy who was, you know, had, as they call it, a godfather. Like, it's hard to explain. There's certain people in the league that are powerful. Whether they're in the front office, in the league office, or whether they're under this coaching tree. Maybe I should say that, a Popovich tree, you know, a Krzyzewski tree, that sort of thing. I was never under a tree. And I think when you have, I call them godfathers or under the tree like that, like if you belong to USA Basketball, that's a heck of a power. That's a heck of a organization that there are jobs open different places and there's connection. And, you know, I wasn't that type of guy. I wasn't a guy who, I like my staff. My staff was the most influential voice for me. I didn't go out and look for a lot of voices to help me. My staff was important to me. Obviously, Tom Young, Tom Young was important to me. Pete Carril was important to me for my growth. Again, there was other people along the way, but I was really never under a tree, so to say. And so I think that's probably what we're talking about.
I don't know, Coach. No? You know what I mean? I think it was something else with it, because I think that you had success even before when you was over there with Byron Scott. Yes. And Byron Scott, had success over there with New Jersey. And it was well known that you was kind of the architect of the offense. He was kind of the you don't have to say that, I'll say it. You know what I mean? But everybody, it is certain things that are well known. So I would say that, there could be Byron Scott tree that you kind of, came from, but it was different because you both had something in common. And that same thing that you're both in common may have been the one thing that they didn't recognize as you being under the certain tree that you're talking about.
Well, Byron and I, for a month or so, maybe even less, were teammates with the Lakers.
Right.
And then when Byron came to the Nets, I was already there, and he kept me to help him along the way because I had been coaching for a while, and that was he had been with the Sacramento Kings for a year or two.
Right.
And then he got hired as a head coach, and he kept me along. But, I always say good players make good coaches. And, the first year we had Stephon Marbury. We drafted Kenyon Martin. Kerry Kittles got hurt. Keith Van Horn was kind of struggling a little bit that year. But nothing came together until we got Jason Kidd.
Right.
We got Jason Kidd on close to a draft day trade for Stephon. And Kenyon got healthy because he had some injuries. Kerry Kittles came back. And then eventually we got Richard Jefferson, Jason Collins. So things came together at the right time under Kidd and Kenyon Martin. They were our two strongest players. So, and then we just went to the finals. We had a good run. Went to the finals 2 years in a row. Lost to the Lakers and then lost to San Antonio next year. And then I got the job with the Wizards.
Right. And, it's interesting just seeing the dynamics because that wouldn't have happened without the system. It wouldn't have happened. Correct, because they were great players. They were everything like that. And no disrespect to any of those players. No. But it was the system that nobody could adjust to quite yet.
Correct.
And it caught everybody off guard. And the dribble handoff, nobody knew how to defend it. And everything. So, and Jason Kidd just being at the being the general of it and putting everybody in place, it all just worked.
It did.
And it just worked well. And so my question is, why, for the success that you have shown with the system, right? And the success that you had with the Wizards, and we were there, right?
Yep.
Why was it that you weren't recycled the way that I saw other coaches being recycled? And we don't have to talk about the other coaches in name, unless you want to, because I can name them. But but no, I have no problems naming them. But and it was it a matter of your phone stopped ringing, or was it a matter of that you wanted to step away from the game?
Because I didn't want to step away. What happened? We had a good run with the Wizards,
right?
And then we even made the playoffs when Gilbert was out.
Right.
And we had Antonio Daniels and Deshaun Stevenson as our starters.
Right.
And we went to the playoffs with that backcourt and with some injuries. But Etan, I don't know exactly why things didn't. I wasn't recycled. But what I'm proud of is when I got let go with the Wizards, I got hired by the Sixers the next year.
Right.
And we had a very young team, talented, very young. We had Lou Williams, Andre Iguodala. Elton Brand was coming off a serious leg injury. We had Drew Holiday as a rookie, so he was young. And then we had Maurice Spates. Lou Williams broke his jaw. Maurice Spates hurt his knee, so they were out for like a month or so. So that hurt us around December, January. And we signed Allen Iverson. From at the end of his career. So that was some dysfunction there and some youthfulness. The team was just it didn't have chemistry. I see Allen here in Charlotte. He lives here. And he always says, Coach, I loved your offense, but I just couldn't get it after, in that short of a time. I said, I know it takes a little while. Even people with the Bulls, let's say, it took them a year and a half, 2 years to learn the offense. I saw that in Last Dance, but I knew that anyway.
Right.
But let me just say this. What I'm proud of was I was out. So after 1 year with the Sixers, I did what you're doing. I coached my son's AAU team, and I did that sort of thing. He's doing great. He's doing well. So I was coaching his team. I coached the AAU, DC Assault AAU team out of DC.
Oh, okay.
We won a national championship.
Okay.
And then what was interesting was I got a call from Mike Brown. He was the head coach of the Lakers, and he says, "Eddie, Kobe wants to run the offense."
Oh.
Kobe wanted me to come out there. He wanted me to be hired so they could run the offense because Mike Brown was there a year, and Kobe didn't like the offense.
Right.
So he said, "Call Eddie Jordan. I want to know how their offense, because I like their offense." So I went out there. I met with Kobe.
Mm-hmm.
He was practicing for the USA basketball. We met, and we talked about the offense for a couple of hours, maybe not that long.
Mm-hmm.
But he was already sold. So he said, "Mike, you got to hire Eddie." So, and this is interesting. I was happy about that. Like Kobe wanted to learn the offense. So before training camp started, Kobe and I worked out every morning. I showed him all the routes from the guard spots, from the forward spots, all the routes in the offense. And then we get Steve Nash in the trade.
Oh.
The Lakers get Steve Nash at the end of the summer.
Right.
So Mike Brown says, "Hey man, we've got to like tilt the offense so Steve Nash can run pick and rolls at the beginning of the possession." I said, "Mike, we can do that. Just let Kobe and Steve fill it out themselves."
Mm-hmm.
But in Mike Brown's mind, he wanted to have play calls for each player. So look, we had Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant,
mm-hmm.
Paul Gasol,
mm-hmm.
Dwight Howard,
mm-hmm.
and Metta World Peace. That was our starting unit.
Right.
And I said, "Look, let Steve and Kobe, let them fill the offense, just like we did with Gilbert, and whether it was Jared in the backcourt or
mm-hmm.
whether it was Antonio Daniels in the backcourt. Any one of them can run the pick and roll, and they'll find, as you know, they'll find their way in the
mm-hmm.
offense. Kobe will find his post-ups. He'll find his slashes. Steve
mm-hmm.
will find the pick and rolls. Kobe can run pick and rolls. Kobe can go to forward, and the forwards would turn to guards."
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Brown did, in a shorter time, he didn't really like trust that 100%.
Oh, interesting.
So we didn't really run it. And so after 5 games in that season, Mike Brown got fired. 5 games.
Oh, wow. That's right.
Fired. There was 2 reasons for that. One is we were 0-8 in the preseason. We weren't running the offense. Now let's just straighten that out. We didn't run the Pistons. We were running something else.
Okay.
We were 0-8 in the preseason. At the same time, the Clippers were just starting their Lob City. What do they call it? Lob City.
Right.
They were going really high with Jordan and the kid at Detroit now.
You're talking about Blake.
Blake. Yeah, and so they were dunking, and everybody was turning to the Clippers. Like, the Clippers are hot.
Mm-hmm.
Lakers are 0-8.
Mm-hmm.
So we started the season 1-4. I think it was 1-4, and Mike Brown got fired, and they hired Mike D'Antoni.
Okay, all right. See,
talking about recycling, right?
Oh my gosh! I mean, since you brought him up, you know what I mean. He's somebody. You remember when he quit on the Knicks? Like, he literally quit on the Knicks in the middle of the season, and he keeps getting rehired. And even to right now, when he was like, he informed the Rockets that he doesn't want to come back there, and they're already talking about him possibly going to
Indiana.
Indiana or Philly. And I'm like, wow. But I've seen other coaches, and I'll just say, black coaches who are capable of being able to coach not get the opportunity year in, year out. And I'm just, it's so for instance, your last year with the Wizards, right?
Yep.
Gilbert was hurt. You know what I mean? We started off bad, and then it's like when you fire someone after 8 games or 9 games, it's almost as if you wanted to fire him already. You were just waiting for the opportunity. And it just seems like that just wasn't fair. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everything that you did before that, with nonstop going to the playoffs, 1 year where your star player Gilbert Arenas is injured the entire time. You went
9 games, 10 games.
8 games to fight. I didn't think that was fair. And I only see that happening to coaches that look like us. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't see that happening to other coaches.
Like Mike Brown gets fired after 5 games. Like
5 games?
Yeah, I know. And I think because they had D'Antoni in their mind anyway, because he had coached Steve Nash. So that's how that went, I think. And the not funny, but the interesting thing was Mike D'Antoni had just had knee replacement surgery.
Right.
So when they hired him, he came in on crutches. And look, he did a good job. And the thing about it, he kept me because people had said, well, when Mike comes in, he's going to clean house and he's just going to keep these 2 assistants. Everybody else is gone. But he kept me. So I was happy that he kept me, and I'm appreciative of that. So yeah, that was interesting. But you know what? That was a tough year because there was some dysfunction between certain people in the starting lineup. But we made the playoffs. And at the end of that year, I got offered a job at Rutgers, my alma mater, as a head coach. And I said, and I always said this to Etan, I said, I love the NBA so much. I said, I don't think I would ever coach college basketball unless it was Rutgers.
Okay.
And lo and behold, they went through that very bad spell where the coach was, Mike
awful
Rice.
Spell. Yes, that was terrible.
So I took over a job that was probably the worst job to take in the country.
Okay.
It was my school.
Right.
And I could have stayed in the NBA. I said, look, I'm going to my school. I'm gonna help them. And so I think that had, then you go. So I'm out of the league for about 3 years. 4 years, and then so you sort of get lost in the shuffle, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask me. So one of the most common questions that they ask me here, and so just to let you know that this program, the rematch that we have, is that we give people the opportunity to kind of retell their story, to answer questions that people don't know about them. And stuff. So one of the main questions that people ask, when they come up to me around DC, anywhere in the DMV, is they ask about your relationship with Ernie Grunfeld. And they say, well, what type, because a lot of people were looking at the way that you got fired as being unfair, based on your body of work of us going to the playoffs all those years beforehand. So what was, so just to let people know, what was your relationship with Ernie Grunfeld?
Well, let me just say this. Ernie and I are contemporaries. We're the same years. We played college basketball at the same time. We played in different all-star games as seniors together, not together, but against each other. So we were contemporaries. We're the same age, same level. He played in the league for about 6, 7, 8 years. I played 7 years. So when we started working together, this was funny because Mr. Pollin hired me.
Right.
First. Ernie.
Before he hired Ernie. I remember.
Right.
I was there for all that.
Yeah, I
remember all that. Okay.
So Mr. Pollin said, look, you're my coach. He hired me on a Wednesday. He said, look, we're going to find a GM. He hired me on a Wednesday, but he didn't want the media to know until we hired a GM that weekend. He said, look, we got a GM in mind. We want to make an announcement next Monday on both of you guys.
Okay.
Right? So he hired me, and then as I was driving back to New Jersey, Susan O'Malley called me and says, look, we want to make an announcement tomorrow. Okay. We're not going to wait till we hire a GM. So I drove back down to DC, and I got hired on that Thursday. And I worked with Wes Unseld, senior, for about a month. We went through the draft. And then I think the beginning of July, we hired Ernie. And my relationship with Ernie was, he was a GM. I was a coach that had a personal relationship with Mr. Pollin, the owner. And eventually, he convinced Mr. Pollin that I should go through Ernie himself and not go directly to Mr. Pollin, which I was doing. I go directly to Mr. Pollin.
Right.
If there was news within the team, Mr. Pollin, this is what's happening with the team. Mr. Pollin will call me, Eddie, how was that game in Miami? I said this, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So that happened several times. And I think Ernie felt that, hey, the stepping stone should be coach to the GM, GM to the owner.
I got you. Got you.
So, look, they gave me, Mr. Pollin gave me an extension, or he convinced Ernie to give me an extension, whatever the case may be.
I think Mr. Pollin gave you the extension.
So when Mr. Pollin says, look, Eddie, Ernie wants it this way. I love both of you guys as sons. That's what Mr. Pollin said. He said, so I want you to go through Ernie, and Ernie will report to me. I said, fine, whatever you want, Mr. Pollin.
Right.
So that was fine. And Mr. Pollin did a lot of good things for me. And, you know, I just heard Mrs. Pollin passed away a month or so ago.
Right.
So, but, so the relationship with Ernie was, look, you know, he was good. We had a good relationship. But I had a better relationship with Mr. Pollin.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I did as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know you did.
Not even close. So
yeah,
we shared that. Another thing that people ask me is about the moment when the Wizards did not re-sign Larry Hughes as being a moment where there was a difference in Gilbert Arenas. And so that's what people say a lot to me. And honestly, I kind of know what they're saying because Gilbert kind of deferred to Larry a little bit.
He did.
He kept him a lot. I remember we was in the playoff series against the Bulls. And remember we went down to Chicago and we got blasted by like 25, 30 points both games, right? Yep. And then Larry Hughes, I remember on the bus, Gilbert was like panicking, like, what are we going to do? We're going to do this. And Boog was like, it's no problem. We'll make a few adjustments and we'll be all right. Yeah. And then Gilbert was like, okay, all right, I guess that's what happened. And then we came back and we had some great games and ended up winning the series. But that level of calming is what Larry Hughes provided. And after, you know, they didn't resign Boog, there was a different Gilbert. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, let me tell you a story because you want to hear stories. So this is a story that I understood that's very true and that Mrs. Pollin even said. When Larry Hughes was an unrestricted free agent, unrestricted, right? He was free.
Yep.
And Ernie gave him a low offer.
I remember that.
And at the same time, check this out. Mr. Pollin was in Cleveland. He went to get a checkup at the Cleveland Clinic where he went to go. Okay. And they found that they needed to have surgery on Mr. Pollin immediately. This is the same day as the end of free agency. And Larry says, look, Ernie, I don't have to come back to you. I can make my own. It's that I'm not a restricted free agent. Right. You lowballed me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm worth more than this.
Yes.
So Mr. Pollin goes to surgery on the night of the free agency signing.
Okay.
He's in Cleveland. Mr. Pollin has complications on the table. And from what I understand, flatlined a couple of times on the table.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Right. He was near death.
Right.
During the surgery.
Okay.
The next day, the next morning, the first thing he said this is what Mrs. Pollin said. The first thing he asked when he came out was, did we sign Larry?
Wow.
And Ernie and Mrs. Pollin says, no, we lost him to Cleveland.
Wow.
And Larry came out and says, look, I was insulted by the offer that was offered to me.
Yeah, no, I remember he lowballed him, like really lowballed him.
Lowballed him. And so that's a heck of a story. Mr. Pollin wanted badly to sign Larry. He comes out of surgery and says, did we sign Larry? And they had to say, no, we lost him to Cleveland.
Wow.
So that is one story that, I mean, again, Larry was a calming influence on Gilbert. They played together in Golden State.
Yes.
And then Antoine and Karan helped with Gilbert in the locker room also.
Right. But differently though.
Differently. Yeah. And because Gilbert looked up to Antoine. They played together in Golden State.
Right.
And Karan, Karan didn't take any stuff.
Right.
So Karan would without Gilbert, without Antoine and Karan and yourself, Gilbert would have been haywire in the locker room, which eventually he goes haywire in the locker room.
And that was unfortunate to happen. But I think I also don't think, and I will say this, if Larry Hughes had been there, I don't think that ever would have happened.
Oh, no. Yeah. Absolutely.
Not even a question.
Not even a question. I mean, even the things that Gilbert did, look, my last year, you remember my last year, we had Nick Young.
Yeah, I know.
Andre Bloch.
Yeah.
and JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Ernie kept saying, hey, I said, Ernie, they're young, they're undisciplined, they're this, they're that. But do they have athletic? Yeah. Were they athletic? Yeah. Did Andre Bloch have basketball skills? Yes. But they weren't mentally professionally ready yet.
Right.
ready as professionals. They were not.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, they all make Shaq's.
Shaq and the Fool.
Yeah, Shaq and the Fool. They were like all three were MVPs.
Well, I mean,
and we had all three of them at the same time.
We did, but you know what though, and this is one of the things, and I saw the frustration on your part where you wasn't allowed to be the disciplinarian that you wanted to be, because the only thing that would happen was Ernie Grunfeld would just come and like supersede something. So even with Andre, with Blatch, if something happened, Blatch was like Ernie's guy. So then he would come and how fresh, like, how did you even operate in that?
Well, I only could do my job.
Right.
I did my job, without bias. I did my job as professional as I could, and with the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And if the fines go upstairs to Ernie, look, you're fined, I'm gonna take the time away from you. I always said this: to discipline a player, you fine him, you take away his time, or you suspend him. Those are the three things. That was my thing.
Right.
You fine him, that's $1,500 fine. Okay, money doesn't mean anything, then your time, and take your time away.
Right.
And then the time doesn't mean anything, then I'm gonna suspend you.
Right.
But Ernie would, from what I understood, the front office gave their money back to those guys. So they felt like
crazy. I mean, I would see it though. I mean, they would talk about it. And I was like, that's not good. And I was like, I talked to some of the other, I was like, that's not good at all. Like, why would he, and that just it didn't have. So it all probably started all the way back to where, he felt like he didn't get the chance to choose his coach, but the coach was chosen for him.
Right.
And it's usually done the opposite way. Like,
correct.
You usually hire the GM first, and then the GM hires the coach.
Correct. So when they let me go, they had Ed Tapscott, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was just like having Ernie Grunfeld. Yeah. Ernie Grunfeld might as well have just been coaching himself.
Correct. Yeah, and then you had Flip Saunders, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
I was gone by then.
Yeah, you were gone. So they end up having the same sort of record, 17 wins or whatever. They had a poor record, right?
Yeah.
With Flip.
Right.
So, but then they got John Wall and Bradley Beal, and because they had this poor record, they had high draft choices. And I think John Wall might have been, was he number 2, 3? Well, he wasn't number 1 pick, was he?
I thought
he might have been number 1 pick.
He was number 1. And so another question that people ask me is, how did Ernie Grunfeld last so long? And they always ask me, and they say, if you ever talk to Eddie Jordan, please ask him. And I was like, honestly, I have no idea.
It's a funny thing. Ernie told me once. He said, we had a conversation, and I don't know if it was a heated conversation or what. And Ernie says, look, I've got to manage. I don't manage down. I have to manage up, meaning he had to take care of Mr. Pollin, whatever that meant.
Okay.
Meaning, look, when he said that he needed me to go to him, and then he goes to Mr. Pollin, that's what he wanted. And that's how he lasted long. He had Mr. Pollin's ear. And the other part of that too, Etan, I believe, obviously, is always money. Not always, mostly it's money.
Yeah.
And when you can stay under the cap and you can get these young players with talent, with a good future, that helps the GM. Look, this kid's got talent, whether it's Nick Young, whether it's Andre Blatch, whether it's JaVale McGee, and then it's John Wall, and then Bradley Beal. They have talent. And so the coach takes time to develop the talent, but the coach doesn't have that time from the GM.
Got you.
So the GMs have the owner's ears. That's how the league works. And then again, the other part of that is agents have a lot of influence on what happens to it. Huh?
You think so? The agents have influence?
Oh yeah. Why do you think they're hiring agents now as GMs?
That's true. But I mean, even back when we were playing, though.
Agents have impact on how your team or how the GM thinks, and what the GM tells the owner, or what the agent himself tells the owner. Oh yeah. Oh, very, very, very influential in the league. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Why do you think LeBron James? I mean, look, LeBron's LeBron, obviously, but
Right.
that's how it goes. That's the biggest of the agents. Those guys, LeBron's agent,
Okay.
you know, and
well,
look,
he's a separate case, though. I mean,
yeah, no, he's a separate case. But
yeah.
but look, he can get Lakers. We can get Anthony Davis. Come here. You know,
Yeah.
I'm LeBron. I'm Anthony Davis' agent too, right?
Yeah.
And that's how the league works. It's any team in the league. Look, you've got my star player, but I want you to take this guy too. If you want to sign my star player for an extension, you got to get this guy too. Oh, that's no secret in the league.
Huh.
And which, you know, look, that's business. That's how business, you know, that's the way it is.
Right. So what was your relationship with Gilbert? Because that was a relationship that you didn't really understand, really, sometimes looking at it. You know, and I know Gilbert was a very complex individual. You know what I'm saying? He was very complex.
Yeah.
But, you know, and it seemed like sometimes, you know, there was a little bit of the butting of heads and things like that, just because of the fact that, you know, he put so much on him, but then he used to do things just differently. Like he would like to come in. Gilbert was interesting because he didn't want anybody to know that he worked hard. It was the weirdest thing. So he would come in like at 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody
4 o'clock in the morning, and
like work out hard, stuff like that, and then he'd come in practice and act like he don't want to practice. I was like, what? You know, but what was your relationship like?
It was, you know what, Etan, Gilbert was an assassin on the court. You know that. He wanted to tear your throat.
Like top when he was at his peak. I always tell people he was like top, if not the top tier, top 5. He was right below that.
He was top tier. He averaged 30 points a game.
Yeah, you remember when he went and was like went off on Kobe, scored like
60, 62, and then the next night he gets 50 something in Phoenix that we won in Phoenix.
Nobody could hold him.
Nobody could hold him.
Right.
And you know, so and I always say this: as long as a player is passionate and gives 100% on the floor, he's going to live his own life off the floor the way he is. But as long as if your teammates respect you, that's fine. I don't care how weird or crazy you are, you know.
Right.
So my relationship with Gilbert was definitely not even off the floor so much because he had his own life. You know, we all have our own lives off the floor.
Right.
But you know, look, if you got to respect, you have to get respect from your teammates, and your teammates are pretty solid guys.
Right.
You, Antoine, Karan,
everybody.
You know. They're solid guys. Michael Ruffin, good solid players, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Jared and Brendan were different, you know, but
a little different.
a little different. But you know, they used to always say the big 3 and they were the little 2.
The little 2,
The little 2. Right. They always said that. But I see well, anyway. But you know what I like too? That year I thought our coaching staff thought Jared at the 2 guard. When we lost Larry, I said, let's move Jared to the 2.
Oh, yeah.
And because Ernie thought, well, Karan should be a 2. I said, no, Karan is a natural small forward.
Yeah, he is.
Jared can do a lot of things at 2. He knows the offense.
Right.
He rebounds, helps our rebounding. He can defend anybody on the floor, on the perimeter, you know, except for, what's my man that scored 62?
Oh, Tracy McGrady.
Jason McGrady.
I remember that game. I knew you were talking about it.
He scored 62, and then Jared goes and hugs him after the game.
Yeah, that was
Jared. No, don't do that.
Don't hug him.
Don't hug him.
Oh my God.
But apparently they were friends, I guess.
Yeah.
But so Gilbert and our relationship was, you know, we were okay. I just, you know, if you go ahead and do your thing. Right. I know Gilbert said one time, or even on his podcast, I think I heard that he said, yeah, I know Coach's offense better than he does. So, okay, Gilbert.
But Gilbert, he had a basketball mind, but Gilbert was interesting because he, you know, and I interviewed him here, and we had a great discussion on everything.
Oh, he's good. He's fun.
Gilbert was great. Gilbert was a lot more intelligent than he wanted people to know. He was like, I always said Gilbert was like the kid in school that would, you know, hide his books like in a pizza box because he didn't want to let anybody know that he was studying. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
that's good. That's a good one.
That's how I started with Gilbert. But you know, it was great playing with him. And it was just interesting because so much happened back then. But still, you know, where we are now in the NBA and seeing, and I want to ask you about this because you know, I'm looking at the roster of coaches, and we have a lot of assistant coaches, a lot of black assistant coaches. But right now we have 5 black head coaches out of 30 teams. Like, that number has dwindled, and the NBA has always been looked at as the more progressive league. You know what I mean? Like, we're not the NFL. We don't have the issues where, they don't have, but you look at the coaching and it's numbers are dwindling. What is the explanation for that? With all of this long, like, I could go through all the different black coaches who are assistant coaches now and ready to go. You have Randy Brown, in Chicago. You have Greg Buckner. You have Howard Isley, Darvin Ham, Tim Hardaway Sr. You have Popeye Jones, Jamal Mosley, Wes Unseld Jr. You have Fizdale, Van Exel, Emeka Udoka, Jaron Collins, Lloyd Pierce. I can keep going down the list. And Ed Pinckney, Sam Cassell, looks like he might get a look at Houston. And you still got Mark Jackson. And so you have all of these different coaches, but we got 5 black head coaches. What is the reason for that right now?
The only thing that I could say is the newer GMs, the modern GMs are guys who are analytical. They aren't the GMs in the past where they were ex-players.
Okay.
Whether it's Danny Ainge or whether it's people like that, ex-players who know how important being probably an ex-player is as a head coach. But I think it becomes a numbers as far as analytical, and GMs are hiring coaches that are like them in a sense, because that's how these new GMs are. Okay. And they have the assistants. Yeah, there are a lot of black assistants, and they're there to, like Jason Kidd and Lionel Hollins on the same staff, right in LA, along with the other guy I work with in LA. But they have the ex-players, the black ex-players, to sort of massage the relationship.
Right. There was massage relate. Okay, you're getting somewhere here. So they wanted you to be as far as relating to the black players, but don't trust you as far as X's and O's on the court.
Again,
analytical. That's what it sounds like. Because every team has. I don't think there's any team that has like no black assistant coaches. You know what I mean? They all have a black assistant coach somewhere. Right. But do they trust you with the analytics? That they trust, something's going on here. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think it starts with GMs are just different this sort of in this era. And that's the only thing I can think. But again, look, it's trendy. The NBA is trendy, it could go, if 2 years ago or just a year ago, you heard a lot about they want every team to hire a female assistant. Right. And you don't hear about that so much right now. Right. A little bit. But that was like a priority. Right. I even heard that the commissioner really wanted every team to hire a female assistant. Right. So I don't know.
I saw Byron Scott, a few weeks ago said that current NBA players should advocate for black coaches the way that Kobe advocated for him. I thought that was an interesting statement. What is your thought on that?
Well, why should players have a major say in it anyway? That's what I say. Suppose you want to be a head coach and you go to a team that's interested in you, the GM is interested in you, and the players don't know you. How about the players don't know you as well as I know you or somebody else knows you? So, and you're qualified, the GM likes you, they think you should fit with the team. So they go to the star players. They say, well, we don't know Etan Thomas, so he doesn't hire you. So, so why would that be a case? Why would, and I know it's, again, that's the way life is now.
Yeah, and I would say, isn't that what happened in Brooklyn? Because KD knew Steve Nash back when he was playing with Golden State, and Steve Nash was like a third assistant or special assistant or something like that, and that's where they developed a relationship. And according to reports, I don't know, but according to reports, that KD advocated for Steve Nash to get the head job. It wasn't like it wasn't like a white privilege thing or anything like that. It was specifically KD advocated for him to get the job, and then Kyrie co-signed it, and that's why they hired Steve Nash.
Well, see, why would the GM listen to that anyway?
Listen to that. Okay,
see, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, so will Steve Nash have a bias approach to those two guys because they got him the job when it's time to sit somebody down or to jump in somebody's face or to discipline one of those guys or whatever?
Right.
If I'm a GM, I'm going to hire the guy I think's going to work. That's going to do the job. Don't think I'm going to go to the player. And look, maybe that's the way life is now in the NBA. Obviously, it is.
Right.
But again, I don't like 30 dribbles to get a shot. And I don't like a GM going to a player and says, "Who you think we should hire this guy?"
That's true.
I just don't go for that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, all right. So I got to ask you this last question. I'm going to keep you too long. I know we're talking.
I'm okay.
You're okay? All right, I got to ask you this question. So people always talk about me and Brendan all the time. You know what I mean? That's people always ask me, so what's wrong with you and Brendan and everything? You don't understand how much I get that question, right? And so there's a few things that Brendan has said that I don't remember happening, and I wanted to ask you just to clear it up. So one of the first things that he said is that one of the seasons, and that you told him now listen, let me finish. Before the season, you told him that he was going to be the starter, right? And then that you told me that I was going to be the starter, and then we started the season. Now, my response to that was always that Coach Jordan never told me that I was going to be the starter. He told me that I was going to have the opportunity to compete for a starting position, and then whoever played better, that's who would start. That's what Coach Jordan told me. But then the accepted, I guess, because it keeps being said, is that you told Brendan that he was going to be the starter, and that's why, I guess, when he wasn't the starter, why he got upset. So I just wanted you to clear that part up.
Brendan was never the starter at one point.
I mean, he was starting for most of the time. I mean, there was one period of time where we competed, and I guess we was kind of both in and out of this was the season before my heart surgery. So that season, it was in and out. Sometimes I started, sometimes he started, and that's pretty much what you told me would probably happen. We was going to split the time anyway.
That's right.
That's what you told me. So you was like, no, whoever's playing better is going to be the one playing.
So let me go back to the initial part of that.
Okay.
Ernie suggested that I come down and meet with Brendan in the off season. So I didn't want to.
That was an Ernie suggestion. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't want you to meet with me though, huh?
No, because
to do with it. He just wanted you to meet with Brendan. Okay.
Remember, Brendan had a good stretch there. But I'm gonna get to that story.
Okay.
Brendan had a good stretch during one season.
All right.
And he had a great game, and we won. And the media says, well, Brendan's having a great stretch. What did you do?
Right.
And I said, well, it wasn't me. Yeah. Everybody has a hand in helping Brendan upstairs, our assistant coaches. I said, it takes a village to raise a child.
Oh, you know what?
That was a firestorm. That was a firestorm. I was giving everybody credit. It's a saying. It's a saying. And his mother called me.
I remember that.
I got called up to the office.
I remember that.
I had to explain it to Mr. Pollin because Ernie was all upset. And I was like, I'm giving everybody everybody credit. Like it takes a village to raise a child. I didn't call him a child.
I got you.
And maybe I shouldn't have used it.
But, I remember that.
Yeah. So Ernie suggested I come down and talk to Brendan in the offseason before training camp. So I came down with Randy Ayers. Okay. Randy and I came to Charlotte, and we met with Brendan. Mm-hmm. I never promised him a start lineup. I said, you're this and that. We're on the same page. I want us to have a good start of the season. Mm-hmm. You play hard, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So I never ever promised anybody ever in my coaching career you're going to start.
Yeah.
ever.
I mean, I hear you. I don't know why that circulated around, and that's just what I was like, because that's not what he told me at all. I was like, I ain't getting no promise. He just said you come in, work hard. And
there was one time there was our defense was kind of soft at one point. Ernie always said we were always soft, but but I said, so there was a practice, and I said, well, you know what? I'm going to start Calvin Booth, and I'm going to start Michael Ruffin.
I remember that.
We went, and I'm not going to start Antoine, and it was somebody else, maybe Brendan.
Yeah.
Because they were too soft in practice, right? So we go to Atlanta, and we're in a dogfight, and we win because Antoine hits a shot at regulation and had a great overtime.
Okay.
So he was mad at me, but we won the game. That was the whole object. But anyway, I never promised Brendan a starting lineup and being a starter.
Right.
And look, I saw Brendan in this grocery store here, and it's still awkward. It's still awkward talking
to him. Still?
I see him at Lifetime. You know, he's not a fan, of me. So
but it's so crazy because it was like, because remember we were there 2 years before you got there. And so I always tell people, me and Brendan, we were like one of the best friends on the team. Like we were like one of the closest before. Like I remember, and this is back when they called him, like when Oakley didn't like him and Byron Russell didn't like him, and they was calling him Delicious. And they, you know what I mean? They called him Brenda. That all started with that group. And I remember one time actually when MJ got mad at him during the practice, I guess he had a pick on him or something like that and clipped him or something like that. And MJ took the ball, right? And he threw it at him, like really at point blank range, threw the ball at him. And he was like, you blank.
Right.
And so, and Brenda was just standing there. And I remember after the practice, I immediately called him like, are you okay, man? Like, that's messed up. Like, that's how close we was. But then once we when you came, and then it was like, okay, whoever plays best is playing. And then it was like, because I didn't play really a lot with Doug Collins. Doug Collins just wasn't,
right.
I wasn't playing at all. But with you, it was like, okay, whoever plays best is playing. So some games he would play better and he would play. Some games I would play better and I would play. And it was like at that point, that seesaw, it was like.
But see, to me, Etan, to me, it was first, who played the hardest?
Right.
Number two, who played for his teammates? That was my criteria.
We had different styles of playing. Like he
had different styles.
He was a 7-footer. He was just kind of, out there like, so me, I played with all heart. I mean, I'm 6'9". I'm not a 7-footer. I'm 6'9". So it was all passion, all like aggressive, all everything like that.
That's what I wanted.
That's what you liked, right?
That's what I liked.
It worked out, but it was interesting from the
there. My first year there, Christian Laettner did the same thing to Brendan.
Yeah,
he did something. He back screened Christian. He gave him a bad pick or something, which he wouldn't do in a real game.
So Christian Laettner took the ball
and threw it right at his head.
Right. And you remember I jumped out and I was like, got in between them and pushed them away and stuff like that, and then calmed the whole situation and everything. And I was like, you all right? And so like I'm saying earlier, we was like good friends, but then of course everything changed after that. But we had a good unit, and I thought that you had and I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. You had a lot of success with the Wizards, and you was able to do something again that we didn't do since Chris Webber and then were playing when they were the Bullets. I don't even think they were the Wizards then. They were the Bullets.
They were the Bullets.
And we didn't get to the playoffs like that with MJ. We got to the playoffs for how many years consecutively? It was like 4
what happened?
Years?
What it was, the Wizards hadn't made, or Bullets/Wizards hadn't made the playoffs in 20 years.
Yeah, 20.
So the first year we made the playoffs, we go to the second round.
Right. That was when we beat the Bulls, right?
That was when we beat the Bulls.
And that was a good Bulls team. That was a good Bulls team. They had a young Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry. They had a crew. Like that.
And that was the first time the Wizards had gone to past the first round in 25 years.
Right. Because Chris Webber and them lost to the Bulls.
That's right. And you know what? And when we played the Bulls, they were supposed to have been, Scott Skiles was the head coach, the best defensive team in the league.
Right.
And then, as the series went along, we were the best defensive team in that series.
Yeah. Not even
people don't know that. We were the best. Their percentage, we had the best field goal percentage against.
Right.
Everything was better than there.
Right.
And nobody picked that up.
But that's what I mean. Nobody gave you the credit for that.
But see, that's where the GM should have come in and raved about not just me, but the coaching staff and the team. Yeah. But he raved about Gilbert.
Yeah. See, it was all
and remember, I don't know if you remember, Gilbert got cut from the USA team, the Olympic team.
Oh, yeah, that's
and so he said, I'm scoring 50 against everybody associated with the USA.
Yeah, that's right. He did say that.
So he goes 62 in LA. Yeah. He goes 50-something in Phoenix, right? Matt Tantoni. Right. And then somebody comes to the Wizards, come home to us, and they beat us. And he only scored 9 points. And I can't remember the kid's name from DC. He played for us. What was his name? He was a guard. He was a good defensive guard. But anyway.
Keith Bogans?
No, not Bogans. I can't remember.
Okay.
His name. But Gilbert only scored 9 points.
Right.
So in the media after the game, one of the media guys says, well, Gilbert said he was going to score 50, but he only scored 9. And he said that's because the coach emphasized defense too much.
No.
Gilbert said, I emphasized all week, coach was emphasizing defense too much. So I said, next question.
Right.
So after 3 or 4 more questions, it comes back. Somebody asked, well, what do you think about Gilbert saying that? And I said, well, that's stupid. I said, don't even come on, man.
Yeah, that's right.
That's stupid.
And they said that you called him stupid.
Yeah, they said, but then they run to Ernie, right? They run to Ernie because I said, look, we as a franchise want to emphasize defense, which Ernie always says, you got to emphasize defense. Yeah. So we did all week.
Right.
And so when they go to Ernie, this is, well, coach called Gilbert stupid or something like that.
Yeah,
and
that's what they said.
That's what they said.
And Gilbert stupid.
Right. So, Gilbert said, well, the coach emphasized defense too much. That was when Ernie should have said, we are emphasizing defense.
Right.
And Gilbert shouldn't have said that. Whatever.
Right.
This is what Ernie says. Well, Gilbert scores a lot of points for us and will continue to score a lot of points for us.
I remember that too.
So look,
I remember that.
That was your time to step up and support your coach, support what you've been saying to the coach, and to tell the star player, look, this is the way we want to do things. But he threw me under the bus and said Gilbert's going to score a lot of points for us, continue to score a lot of points for us. So
wow. I even remember when we had the success. And this is the first year. Remember, Gilbert got hurt, and Steve Blake was the point guard.
Yep.
You remember? And Steve Blake was playing very well.
Steve Blake and Juan Dixon together.
Yep, they were playing really well. And Ernie did not want to give Steve Blake any kind of props or recognition or anything like that for doing well. And I remember they asked him one time, and he said, well, we're just waiting for Gilbert to get back. I was like, dang, Ernie.
I know.
You can't even say Steve is playing well.
So again, that's agent stuff too, because he was not in bed. He was with the agent. Ernie liked Gilbert's agent.
Who was that? Dan Fagan?
It was Fagan.
Fagan. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
GMs and agents are, they have a line of communication themselves that is separate from everybody else.
Yeah. So all right. So as a trainer, and this will be the last question I ask you.
Sure.
I work out with a lot of younger cats now. I told you I work out with my son, and I tell my guys that I want them to pick a player and try to emulate that player, to study him, to be able to, my son's players that he really likes is KD and Giannis. Those are his 2 guys. But I want him to look at Anthony Davis too, because of course I want him to go inside a little bit more too. But those are the players. So each player, that's what they work on. What are the things that you work on the most with your players? That
I do exactly what you said.
Okay.
I'll watch a lot of games.
Right.
Because I don't know when I'm coaching, when I'm a coach of a team, I coach the team. I coach plays, not coach. I see how the team's supposed to work together. Right. But now that I have individuals, which I've never done before, I've never worked out individuals. It's always been, a team. This is what you pass, cut, you're going to do this, and we're going to share the ball. And now I got individuals. So I do exactly what you said. I'll watch games a lot, and I'll see Jason Tatum's a guy I watch a lot. I love his game. Jimmy Butler, and I see their dribble moves. And I see how they get their shots off efficiently, not I wouldn't watch James Harden. You know, there are times James Harden makes the in and out, crossover, spin.
Right.
So those are the things I write down. When I watch a game, I said, okay, that was an in and out, that was a crossover, or two crossovers, and a spin and a step back.
Right.
And I'll do that to my high level guys.
Okay.
You know, for my middle school kids and my younger kids, I don't do that. They just have to learn the basic stuff. But I have an All-American a high school All-American that I work out. His name is Khalil Brantley.
Okay.
Goes to Boys and Girls High School in New York City, but he's here now.
Okay.
And I'll teach him. I'll see what I saw Jason Tatum do, or Kemba Walker, or I see good moves, no matter who it is, and I'll write it down. And I'll watch highlights, or I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch highlights of moves, and I'll say, okay, I like that. That was efficient enough. That looked effective enough, and I can teach that. So that's something that you could do. But I love Jason Tatum. I love his pivot game. I understand he learned that from Kobe. I love his pivot game. He catches, he pivots, step back. You know, I don't teach the Euro step, and I'm just starting to teach the step back or side step, because that's where it's evolving. That's what kids do now anyway. Yeah. And if you can separate yourself from the defender anyway, whether it's a fadeaway or a step back, then that's something you can see if they can do. But some kids can't do it. Some kids can. So that's what I look at I look at good players and see what good players do, how they separate themselves, how they get off a good shot, not a hard shot.
Right.
And I look at screening action, but that's only because if, like, I use cones, like, okay, that's your screen, come off the screen, come get a handoff, now come back and repick. And I'll do that sort of stuff. Okay. But I love it because I've never done it. All my coaching years, I've never done individual. So this is terrific for me. I love it. It's new stuff.
So do you use a lot of props? Like sometimes with some trainers, you see a lot of props.
I don't use chairs.
All that other stuff.
No, I don't use tennis balls.
Right.
I don't use two balls. No, it's one ball. It's this V cut, get open, get a dribble handoff, come back and use another pick. You know, you can snake it, pull up, you can floater. Yeah. You know, I use just basic stuff, but I don't use a tennis ball and a ball. I don't use a chair. I don't use, you know, you do that in the gym with the trainer who's going to lift you, you know. Right. But it's just one ball the hoop and maybe a cone here and a cone there, you know.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's what. Now let me ask you, would you want to return to coaching in the NBA?
Oh yeah, I would love to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would love to. So only not as a head coach. Never,
you wouldn't want to be a head coach anymore.
No, I wouldn't want to be a head coach.
Why is that?
Because I think my worth is like when I was here with Steve Clifford with Charlotte, Steve says, look, I want you to coach me. And I like that idea. That's where I am in my life now. You know, I want to not coach to coach, but that's sort of a loose term. I want to be there as a senior advisor to a head coach, you know. Gotcha. And yet talk to players on the side. You know, I don't want to be I don't care. I wouldn't mind being involved with day-to-day stuff and working guys out, which I like now. But I want to be next to the head coach and help the head coach. Okay. That would be my role. That would be my best role right now. And I've got a few calls about that.
You have? Okay. Well, I mean, you have a great basketball mind. So honestly, I don't see how you wouldn't be returning to the NBA, even if, you know, the opportunity may come down the road for a head coaching position. We can just see if that happens. But definitely, you know, I wish you nothing but success. And it was good catching up with you.
Nice catching up with you, man. You're the best.
I appreciate you. Like I said, I enjoyed the time. I tell my guys all the time about, you know, our times with the Wizards and your coaching style and the way that you wanted to hold everybody accountable, and you allowed it just because, you know, you have times where guys, you know, I'll have two guys that are very good at the same position. Yeah. And one could start and the other could start. Yeah. And I always go back to, what Coach Jordan did with me. And he said, whoever's playing the best is the one who is going to play. And so some days it may be you, some days it may be you, but that's how you don't allow someone to get comfortable. So when they get comfortable, then they start to coast. Right. And that's what certain players, you know, wanted to do, to be able to coast and know that they still have their starting spot regardless.
But you know what, Etan, you were good facing the basket. You were good at the elbow. You were good at the top of the key. You weren't just a poster player that people would probably want to just pigeonhole you into.
Right.
You know, you were face up. You were a rollback guy.
Right.
You were a jab step. You know, dribble, spin guy, get to the basket.
Yeah.
So you were multi-talented, man, and so you were more versatile than anybody we had at that center spot. You know, so I mean, if I had you and Michael Ruffin, I'd have been happy.
Michael Ruff is a great guy. He goes his all. You know what I mean?
I know.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Hope all the family, say hi to all the family for me and everything like that. And you
just stay in touch, man. Let's not lose touch like we did, man. Well, we haven't lost touch, but
yeah, no, definitely. We'll stay in touch now.
Okay, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right.